Hey everyone, so a quick introduction. I am Ricky Nuttall. I am a firefighter living and working in London. The reason I'm doing an introduction video is because I want people to understand who I am, what I'm about, what's gone on with me recently. I'll try and keep that a bit succinct. And then I want people to like and subscribe to the page because I'm going to be talking about mental health, not just from a man's perspective, but particularly from a man's perspective, because people are killing themselves is the bottom line. Men are dying on a regular basis because they don't know how to talk to each other, and they think certain subjects are taboo that shouldn't be taboo. They think that talking about mental health is a bad thing or it makes them weak, when in actual fact it is only in your weakest moment that you realise just how strong you are. And when you're absolutely broken and you find the courage to come forwards and tell someone that's the moment that you know you are going to survive. That's the moment you know you're going to make it. So my story in a nutshell. I grew up in Kent. I had a physically abusive stepdad who used to beat me and my older brother up, knock us about, heavy-handed stuff. Some stuff was just a bit weird, and like making us stand in the corner of a room and stare at the walls with a pair of his rolled up socks in our mouths because we were talking through a film, or just unnecessary sort of vindictive crap that made us live in fear. We grew up fearful of my stepdad coming home from work. I actually wrote a poem about it, which was published by the NSPCC, called The Key in a Lock, which revolved around how I felt when my stepdad, I'd hear the key to the front door go into the lock when he was coming home from work. I'd feel sick in my stomach and my heart would start racing, and I'd be thinking, God, what haven't I done? What have I done? Have I been naughty today? Is mum going to tell him? We were living in fear. After a few years of this going on, my dad got wind of it. I say my dad got wind of it. Myself and my older brother summoned up the courage to tell my dad. So when I was, just before I turned 12, I went to visit my dad for the weekend and just never returned home. Moved to London from Kent overnight, left my posh white grammar school and went to a heavily black inner London school. The reason I mention colour is because of a huge cultural difference that I then experienced in terms of how I knew how to negotiate the world, people, everything to do with life was from a very white perspective and a very white dominated area, to suddenly then be in an environment where it was mostly black and minority ethnic. It was religions that I knew nothing about. It was cultural differences, just down to really simple things like, if I was having an argument with a white guy in Kent, I could put my hands on him and be like, "Whoa, dude, calm down." You could touch him. But I found out very quickly in my school in London, if you did that to a black guy, you were met with immediate aggression, because it's not the done thing. You just don't do that. And that doesn't make one way right and one way wrong. It just means that there are differences. And as human beings, we are all very different. And different environments mean you have to adapt and change. And so I had a lot of changing and a lot of adapting to do, which I managed to do. Within 6 months, I was settled in, I had lots of friends. School was okay. When I left school, I did various different bits and pieces until I eventually joined the fire brigade. As a firefighter, I think for any emergency service worker in the UK, life can be tough sometimes. I always say that firefighters don't leave incidents. No, I don't. That's not what I say. What I say is firefighters leave incidents, but the incidents don't leave us. And that is very, very true for ambulance staff, nurses, police officers, prison service staff. Things happen to us. We are not impervious to PTSD, to mental health problems. We don't really receive it. We have no special abilities or powers that mean we can cope better with that stuff than anybody else. And in fact, as an emergency service worker, you don't know whether you're able to cope with that stuff until that stuff happens to you. And once it's happened to you, it's too late to be worrying about whether or not you can cope. It's survival time. And I've always been relatively resilient when it came to the stresses of my job and PTSD and all of that kind of stuff. Never really suffered with anything. And then one night on the 14th of June 2017, I went to the Grenfell Tower fire. I was one of over 200 firefighters that attended the fire. Lots of us have struggled since, and for me the change was drastic and fast and took me completely by surprise, caught me completely off guard, and I deteriorated very, very quickly. Began suffering with PTSD, began suffering with depression, became angry, became a horrible person to be around, and I've spent the last 4 years fighting my way back from there to a place where I'm not the old me, because the old me will never, that me is gone. I was never going to be the same after the Grenfell Tower fire. What I've had to learn to do is find the new me and learn about the new me and work out who the new me is and how I fit into the world and how I want to progress in the world. And this is part of why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Having struggled so badly with PTSD and to the point where I became suicidal, lost my home, my relationship broke down, my son became scared of me. He was only 3 years old at the time. From when he was 3 to 6, those 3 years of his life, he was petrified of me. And I realise now, with hindsight, I had become my stepdad to him, which is something I'm ashamed of and will always be ashamed of, but nonetheless is a truth of my story. So what I'm doing now is talking about mental health, talking about antidepressants, talking about the mistakes that I made, drug use, alcohol abuse, all of these things that people like me have struggled with or continue to struggle with, in the hope that it creates dialogue, in the hope that it creates comfort, and in the hope that it removes the loneliness that people can feel when they're suffering with poor mental health. Now, that isn't only synonymous with men. This transcends to women as well. Obviously, women are no better at dealing with mental health, other than the fact that they are more willing to talk about it with their peers, colleagues, friends, family members than men are. Women are just as likely to suffer with trauma, with mental health problems. They just deal with it a bit better than us men. So anyway, that's my introduction of who I am. If you want to know any more about me, Google me, Ricky Nuttall. Go to my website, which is justrick.co.uk. As I said at the start, click like on this video if you've enjoyed it. If you think that more stuff will come that you may benefit from or that your friends may benefit from, share the page with your friends. And if you do want to hear more from me, make sure you subscribe. I'll be posting videos fairly regularly at the start, and that will probably drop down to about once a week, but once a week is the minimum I aim to be posting content on here. If any of you have any questions or any topics, any subjects you'd like me to cover, drop me a DM, PM, whatever other M onto any of my social media platforms, and I will endeavour to cover whatever it is you've raised. My social medias are justrick999 on Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow me there. And again, you can contact me on any of the platforms. Hope you've enjoyed listening to this. This is the beginning of something that I think is going to be incredible for a lot of people. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.